I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit about the challenge, and we'll be able to flip through some of my slides pretty quickly when they do come up. When I first met Reggie and started talking to him, it was a couple years ago, and we were talking about growth, and Reggie was interested in doubling his growth in a 5-year pattern. And we were to look at that and say, what can we do with technology to help or support that approach? And so we took a long, hard look at all of the current technologies and interviewed many of the people in the operational side. As doing that came apart, we realized that some of our technologies were getting quite a bit long in the tooth, kind of like myself. So we were needing to upgrade them, and as we started to take a look at it closer and closer, we were moving off of what was it's called TL2000. It was old McCormick and Dodge program running on an AS400, which was really about 25 to 30 years old. So had been modified quite extensively by the group, and they've done an awesome job of supporting the company with it. However, to double in size with it, the scalability of what we needed just did not feel like it was going to be there. So as we moved along in that process, we decided that we did definitely need to upgrade some of the systems, and so we developed a complete roadmap to the systems, and really the roadmap followed along the line of the organization and the organization's processes. So when we talk about it, and I couldn't agree more with Paul, that this isn't a technology project, it's a company project. It's something that needs to be done in concert with the entire organization, both operations, all the other support functions, HR, finance, everything has to be in concert and working well in order for the digitization to take hold and move where you want it to. So that being said, we embarked taking a look at the company, and we really have, this is where I'm really testing my memory, we have 5 pretty distinctive divisions in the company. So we have EDS, which is gasoline delivery, downstream product. We have crude, which is the midstream, taking the oil from the wellhead to the injection point or the refinery. We have a dedicated division, which really does just about. Okay, very good. Okay, so this was stepping back a second, a little bit of what I just talked about. So doubling, and then also a key point that I missed was improving our margin by 600 basis points as well. So we recognize that technology had to support this, but it is an overall company initiative. Again, to the point that I was at here earlier, the energy transportation, the dedicated fleet, freight brokerage, logistics services, we do a little bit of that through our brokerage team, where we're doing more of a 3PL type solution for some of our larger customers. And then we have a petroleum/chemical division that moves hazardous materials in more of a tanker format for the most part, but across agriculture as well as oil field companies and other chemical goods. We do a little bit of international, mostly out of Canada, but just a little bit of that as well. So a little bit about the culture. Safe service that's profitable. I love the tagline for the company. We believe that we have to be safe, and we believe that for a couple of reasons. It really saves you money. It's one of the best risk mitigators we have in our organization. We believe that we have to provide a superior service to all of our customers, or we won't be here tomorrow. Our team members, those that are working with us, those that are our vendors, we consider those our greatest treasure, and if we can't establish the trust bonds there, then it's going to be very difficult to make some of these initiatives happen. We believe in long-term relationships, and we believe in continuous improvement. So when you thought about all that was going on, it became pretty clear to us in this engagement that we really had to transform the business, and we felt that transformation was going to be a must for us going forward. In our TMS world, we decided we were going to take advantage of packaged solutions and cloud-based solutions. So we're using TMS, and we use TMSFirst with Tim here. In mobility, we believe that we had to have responsive websites. We use OmniTrax, PeopleNet. We've recently installed the Linux camera solution. So all that mobility talks about how do we look at what's happening, and not only what's happening, where it's happening. We understand that we have to market our business better, so we've started to leverage more social media in our marketing campaign. And then also, we've long since, from a safety perspective, done predictive analytics, but we believe we need to do more of that, and certainly believe in measuring what we're trying to do with the KPIs. And then in collaboration, we're looking at how do we do different things. Today we have the chat, we have the VoIP, we've gone to a software developed WAN. We're looking at enterprise orientation of collaboration tools as well. So as we move forward, we think that's really important. And then in an infrastructure standpoint, we had to improve our master data, meaning we needed an enterprise service bus. We're moving to a hyper-converged environment, and we really want to move off of the AS400 to make it much easier for my group to support the infrastructure that we do have, simplifying it, making it easier for us to do a better job of supporting it. Today we do have high availability and disaster recovery and business continuity in a fully redundant site in Verret, Georgia. So this is a little bit of an eye chart, so I apologize for that, but really when we start thinking about it, and I outsource some of my R&D to a little company called Infotech, and this really comes from them, but I liked it. It really talks a little bit about Paul was saying, how do you take what you're trying to do and put a strategy behind it to make it work? So we needed to figure out and mandate the scope, and I've been blessed with Reggie as a boss because he's done just that. He's been very instrumental in supporting what we're trying to do. We also needed to assess what were our drivers and constraints. Moving from there, we had to evaluate what was our current state. We kind of talked a little bit about how I did that. There's different tools that we use for each one of these, but I really probably don't have enough time to go into all of those. Once we did that, we wanted to define what do we want the target state to look like. From there, we start the traditional SWOT gap analysis, understanding what's the gap we need to fill, and then finally build a digital roadmap. So this is our roadmap, and you can't see there's some dots in it. For the most part, we've stayed on target. What I'll tell you in the roadmap is that you can see we're hitting every bit of the organization, and they're all involved in different projects that are running simultaneously. The one thing that I probably misjudged in some cases where we were working with our track and trace and visibility, which you heard earlier is a key digitization issue, is that we needed more time to get a full digitization around our gasoline delivery. And those of you that work in that business might understand it probably has the most constraints of any optimization model I've ever seen. You're starting to pull from the refinery, the buyer decides, oops, there's another refinery I can save 5 cents a gallon on. 10 minutes before your driver arrives at that refinery, change the route, pick it up from the new refinery. You have runouts, you have retains, so having to be able to get the automatic tank gauge readings from all the tanks and make sure that they all match so you can create a true optimization model against that. So we're working on that, and then on top of that, we needed to digitize where each one of our drivers were, and we're using PeopleNet and workflow to do that. And in doing that, we have started into a new middleware with TMW. So we really started that trailblazing project that I probably underestimated the number of things that could go wrong. And so that's the one caution I would give in terms of pitfalls. Be careful when you're starting something this big, and especially when you're using new pieces. There's always a gotcha around the corner. So we've experienced some of that, and that you would see that in we would hope to have been done with our track and trace in the operational top line there, and that actually has pushed out a little bit of our plan. But for the most part, everything else is moving along as we would like. So the general gist of this plan was we're going to take all of our TMS solutions and we're going to replace those first. We're then going to replace the systems that work in behind that, the servicing type systems, HR, maintenance, those types of systems, and replace those. And then finance would be the last piece that we would replace. So that's kind of the strategy and the roadmap that we took. Once we decided that, how do you get the business to be involved the way you want them to be? So tactically what we've done is we've chosen to storyboard each one of our processes. Once we storyboard them, we map them out. I don't care if you use Visio, whatever. We use Visagi. It's a tool that basically allows you to map out the process. But the idea is that I have an agent in each swim lane, and I have the processes that happen, and then the order in which they're happening. And so we can look for loopbacks, which really will generate waste in a product cycle. And so as we find those waste pieces on the board and in paper, we can then strategize how do we make the system help us to get rid of that. So this has been a real key component, and also one that is arduous and hard to get done. You get a lot of people in the room, and there's a lot of different opinions. All of them are worthwhile to listen to, but eventually you have to come up with a best practice. What we did first is what typically you hear, the as-is process. And then we sit down and get to the to-be process. And the to-be process is the one that takes us a little bit of time to get to. So we talked a lot about this has to be not just an IT project. What do we need to do? So every project is going to have resistors, followers, helpers, and champions. And the idea here is, as the person leading that project, you need to understand how to react with each one of those types. A resistor, really you need to go interview them. You need to talk to them. You need to find out what their point of view is. And if it's possible to find common ground with that point of view, then you start working with that common ground to build some collaborative input into the model. And if you can start doing that, then that resistor usually will start moving towards maybe just being a follower. And then on, really to the end where you get people that believe in it. And so you start using the end business user as the champion, and you have them starting to do stuff like present these kind of things to the rest of the business, so that it's not Bob standing up here as a technologist trying to tell you how to run your business. It's the business saying, how am I going to use Bob to make my business better? And that's a really key point, guys, and I think we've heard that theme throughout the day, and so I can't stress it enough. So in closing, I have a quote from Donald Marchand from IMD, and he says, none of these changes enabled by technologies comes without accompanying organizational changes, management mindsets, organizational behavior, operating cultures. Deep change over time, coupled with these technologies, where the transformation happens. So again, the point of, I can put every tool in the world in front of somebody. If they're not ready to use it, if they don't know how to use it, then it's not going to help you. So I think if you look at it, understand, identify your challenge, understand the people, process, and the technology, align your strategy in your business, and develop a framework that you can execute under. Have a consistent process for doing this, because if you don't, you're going to get derailed. Plan your change, map your change, execute, test, and implement. And then this, I can't say enough. Train, and expect things to change, because they will. And as they change, you have to be able to adjust to those changes. And last, I'll leave you with think in a global perspective, because digital transformation doesn't just impact technology, it impacts the entire business, but it has great returns. So with that, I'll take any questions you'll have.